Hey everyone, it's Marvin. Thanks so much for listening to Books and Boba. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that Books and Boba just launched our Patreon to help support our future endeavors. Rira and I have been running Books and Boba for the last 6.5 years, and we've always talked about wanting to do more, including expanding our content offerings, being able to go to book events and do more coverage. And so to help us get closer to those ambitions, we started a Patreon to help us grow and to better support books by Asian and Asian American authors. We are offering 2 tiers for our Patreon. The first is our regular Boba member coming in at $3 a month, which will give you access to our brand new Books and Boba Discord server, so you can engage with your fellow Books and Boba Club members and also Rira and myself in real time. This is where we'll be aiming to move the bulk of our book club discussions, but rest assured we'll still have a presence on Goodreads as well. And our premium tier is our Honey Boba member tier, coming in at $5 a month, where in addition to access to our Discord server, you'll also get access to our monthly Boba Chats, a bonus podcast where Rira and I and some guests will get together each month and have a more casual discussion on stuff that may or may not be book related, as well as answer some listener Q&A. Honey Boba members will also have access to a poll to help decide an official Books and Boba book pick once per quarter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, support Books and Boba on Patreon by going to patreon.com/booksandboba. As always, Rira and I really appreciate your support. All right, thanks for listening, and I'm on with the show. Hey everyone, this episode of Books and Boba is brought to you by Libro.fm. As you know, we at Books and Boba are strong proponents of supporting your local independent bookstores, but unfortunately, due to obvious reasons, it's been hard to get out lately. That's where Libro.fm comes in. Libro.fm is the first audiobook company to make it possible for customers to purchase audiobooks through their local booksellers of choice. They offer over 150,000 audiobooks, including New York Times bestsellers and hundreds of bookseller recommendations, and each purchase goes to support one of their 1,100 plus independent bookstore partners. Audiobooks are a perfect way to work through the TBR list of yours while doing chores, walking the dog, or just staying safe at home. All you need is a smartphone with the Libro.fm app. Listeners of Books and Boba can get a 2-month audiobook membership for the price of one by going to Libro.fm, that's Libro.fm, and enter the code BooksandBoba. With each listen, you can take pride in knowing that you're supporting your local bookstore as well as Books and Boba. Again, to access your 2-for-1 promo deal, go to Libro.fm and enter the code BooksandBoba. And now to our show.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Ye.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we have a very exciting author interview for this episode of Books and Boba. We're talking with Julie Abe, the author of the new middle grade novel, Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch.
The book follows pretty much a young witch in training with a pinch of magic and a knack for semi-magical repairs. I had a wonderful time reading this book. And I'm sure that young readers out there who are really into magical fantasy will enjoy it as well. Our talk with Julie was really fun. We talked about our talk pretty much went everywhere. We talked about anime. We talked about how Japanese breakfast is superior to Western breakfast. It's like we talked about fear of failure and how to overcome that. I had a really great time talking to Julie.
Yeah, this is her debut novel. So we also talked to her about her journey becoming a writer and getting this book out. So I guess without further ado, let's get right into our chat with Julie Abe. Please enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have Julie Abe, the author of Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch, here with us today. Thank you, Julie, so much for being here with us.
Thank you. I've been a huge fan of Books and Boba for the longest time. So it's exciting to be here.
Yeah, we're old friends. I remember when when you first started following us. I think it was like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. So we're so excited to have you.
I still
It's
can't
like
believe
we're-
people listen to our podcast, to be honest.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Especially
It's a great
authors too.
resource.
I know, like real ass people listen to our podcast. It's wild.
It's a great resource. Just as an Asian American, it's nice to know that there's a community of authors and books that are actually own voices and legitimate. So I love the podcast.
Awesome.
So your book is coming out in 2 days. We're recording this on August 2nd. So
by the time you hear this, it'll already be out. So we're going to hype up the book so our listeners can go and just grab it right after they listen to this podcast.
Thank you.
do you have, I guess, like jitters? Like, are you nervous about your launch?
It's yes, and no. Yes, because it's finally here, and no, because I feel like it's been happening for a long time already. So it's exciting just to be able to finally have the book out in the world and have everyone finally read it. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, this is your debut, right?
Yes, it's my
Awesome.
first and only book in the world as of yet.
Yeah, we'd love to know more about your background. I mean, were you always a writer? And what was the process like getting this book made and put out into the world?
I never really thought I would ever become a writer. I've always absolutely loved reading. When I was little, I would read all the time. Like, it was my favorite thing. Like, if I could get some like birthday money or something like that, it would always like go towards books, like without a doubt. But I never considered writing as something that I could do personally. One, I think it was because when I was young, there weren't many authors that were not white. And seeing that, I was like, oh, okay, that's not me. Like, I love these books, obviously. I love these authors, but I don't think that's something that is me, something that I can do. So I kind of actually followed in the footsteps of my father and like did biz admin for my major and stuff like that. But all along I loved books nevertheless. Like, I loved just the world of books and how it could take me away and be an escape. And looking back, I do realize that I did write when I was younger. I never thought much of it, but I did write, just for fun, like in a journal or a diary. And then in middle school, my teacher had us read The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I really like the book. It's a bunch of short stories, sort of like set on Mars. And then, so her prompt was write your own little Martian Chronicles, your own chapter. And I was super excited. I was like, oh my gosh, is this homework? Like, this can't be homework. This is actually fun. So I did that and I didn't think much of it. I turned it in. I was like, wow, that was the funnest assignment. But I also had another instance of that. Like, I think it was in 5th grade where we did like a medieval course. And I also had to write for that class too. And I ended up writing like a 20K word count little story. And I was super excited about that. But then I never thought about it like, oh, writing could be a career. Because all I saw around me was like, oh, business or, medical, healthcare, those sort of fields.
Some might say that's the classic Asian American conundrum, right?
Exactly. Which, I still have my day job, of course. And my day job is actually working really well right now. But when I first graduated college, I started a day job, and I'd been working before, like I worked like at a frozen yogurt shop in high school, and like I did internships and stuff like that. I worked an IT tech job through college, but my first day job, I sat down and I started working, and I was like, there's got to be more to life than this. There has to be. And so like I would go back and forth from my 9 to 5 day job, go on my commute, drive home, be like, there's something missing. Well, that job wasn't the right job for me, for one, and the company wasn't the right fit. But I realized like I need to do something more like a passion and hobby. And so I was like, well, obviously, like I love books. So maybe I can write, like just, for fun. Um, so that was about a decade ago. And since then, I was like, well, let me start writing. And then two, I was like, maybe I can actually do something with this. Like maybe it could become a book. I was like, well, I don't know if I can actually write. So I'm like, I kept at my day job and I started writing at night. And I was like, and then I started getting more and more into writing. And I would write more at nights, longer nights. And I would, instead of my weekends being like, just scrolling around on Instagram, I'd be like, okay, let's sit down and get some writing done.
Yeah. Did you go out and seek any training, or were you like self-taught? Like how did you develop your writing chops?
The funny thing is, writing does pop up every once in a while in my school. So in college, we had to take like mandatory English classes. So undergrad, you're allowed to take one random English class. And I took creative writing. Everyone else was taking like business proposals 101. And I was like, oh, there's a creative writing class, guys. I was the only one, I think, in my business admin group that took creative writing. And then you had to take an upper division writing class as well. And for that one, I took my creative writing as well. And so I guess through those, I got some sense of training. But to be honest, it wasn't until later when I was working on my own and writing on my own where I realized like, oh, I need to get critique partners. And that's where my writing really developed and grew.
Yeah. I mean, I totally understand. I also was I was a managerial econ major in college. And I remember taking creative classes as kind of like an outlet for all the math I had to do. It's like, I just need to do something creative. And, I think those seeds get planted early. And I feel like a lot of, especially Asian American creatives, have a similar story, right? Like we started off one thing where we thought this is something we have to do. Mm-hmm. And then we end up somewhere where we want to be. And I think it's pretty cool that you were able to follow that path too. And you didn't give up on your passion. And now you have a book coming out this week, which is amazing.
I think it's really, it's tough though, if you don't see like outside validation, like, oh yeah, like people like me can become writers. Because in college, that upper division class I took, it was like you had to sort of audition to get in sort of thing. And I was like, whoa, I got in, cool. And it was a short story writing class, which is something that I found really fun. And I love the short story that I wrote for the submission. But I didn't know a lot about writing because, I mean, the admin major, everyone else was there was like actually writing majors in that class. And so I turned in my first short story. And the teacher was like, I cannot read this. And I was like, what? And it was an open critique where all 12 or so classmates and the teacher just sat around the table and talked about the story. She was like, I tried to read it. I could not read it. And so that stopped me from writing for a long time.
Oh, no.
Until after I graduated. So I would say,
wow, your teacher sucked.
I know. I was like,
it's not constructive at all.
I know. But there was this one guy whose writing I really admired. And after class, he pulled me aside. He was like, Julie, like, I'm sorry for what she did right there. But I really liked it. I really liked your story. And I was like, oh, wow. Because like during that class, I was about to like bawl because I had never had, I was just I wrote for fun. Like I was not used to my writing getting critiqued. And so that one person sort of saved my feelings towards writing. And I think you might see that in Eva Evergreen. Like sometimes one person is all you need to sort of save your feelings about writing or saving your town or whatever it may be.
So did you always want to write middle grade? I'm just curious because we have so many fantasy books that are in the YA genre. And I feel like fantasy is growing within the middle grade genre.
Yeah. So actually, when I started writing, I wrote just like all over the place because I had no idea what middle grade versus young adult was. Like, I didn't know what fantasy contemporary was. I just wrote. Eventually, I sort of like found some structure and realized the story I was writing was young adult. Um, and I started querying that, but then I realized through writing it and through querying it, I was like, I don't think this is a story that I want to share with the world. And then during that time, I had this idea of this girl, this little witch who wasn't very strong and wasn't very good at anything, kind of like me with querying. But she kept on like pushing through. And I was like, I like this little girl. And so that was sort of where Eva came from and how I transitioned over to middle grade for Eva. But I still do love both young adult and middle grade. And I find myself writing, little projects in both.
Did you pitch your book in like a pitching contest, or did you just do a cold submission to an agent?
So I did a author mentorship program that not pitch wars, but author mentor match, and that didn't involve like an agent pitching or agent showcase. So I cold queried basically everyone that I did query, and my agent Sarah Landis plucked me out of the slush from a cold query. That's
amazing. That means you're that good.
I don't know. She's really good at edits. That's what it is.
I've seen the slush pile, and yeah, like you really have to stand out, and that just is a testament to how good of a writer you are.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'm curious because I know Rira has read the book. I have not yet, but I'm excited because I'm always looking for new middle grade offerings to give to my nieces. And this book club has been a really good resource for that, for gift buying in particular. But for people who aren't familiar with the story, I'd like to know like just the basic description
Sure.
of your story from your words, because since we have you online, we might as well take advantage.
Absolutely.
So what is Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch about?
So Eva Evergreen is a story about a 12-year-old little girl she's got a pinch of magic, but she's trying to pass her witch's test to keep her powers. But if she doesn't pass, she'll lose her powers forever. And one of the things that makes motivates Eva is she's following the footsteps of her mother, who's the most powerful witch in the realm. And she's always looked up to her mother, always wanted to be like her mother. But with her pinch of magic, she just isn't the same. She's just not strong enough. So Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch, follows the story of Eva, going on her quest, getting into a little bit of trouble, but also making the friends that support her, and finding a place where she belongs.
Wow. I just felt like a pang in my heart just thinking about all that, like, not even parental disappointment, but like from the child's perspective, like just not
meeting up expectations. I think every Asian American child can relate to that.
Every child.
I mean, yeah, but
most children.
But like how Asian American parents are like, you have to achieve like 3 degrees, like excellence forever, and like impossible standards. But they want the best for their children. So I want to talk a little bit more about Eva. So when we announced this book, I think it was like 2 years ago when the book deal came out. I was so excited for it because your book was reminiscent of Kiki's Delivery Service, which is my favorite Ghibli movie ever. And the premise was reminiscent of it because it was about a young witch who settles in a new town for training. But, as I continued reading your book, it turned out to be significantly different. Was Kiki's Delivery a source of inspiration? Do you have any other works that helped inspired writing your book?
Okay, so I love Ghibli movies. Like I love Howl's Moving Castle and of course Kiki's Delivery Service. And actually when I was writing Eva, I didn't think of Kiki's, but when I was looking for querying and stuff like that, I was like, oh, Kiki's would be perfect because it's like Japanese and it's got a witch, apprentice witch sort of feeling. So I am really happy for Kiki's Delivery Service that makes Eva so accessible, or something that people can be like, oh, well, I like Kiki's, I think I might like Eva too. Some sources of inspiration. I don't know if a lot of people who listen to the podcast watch anime, but I like Boku no Hero Academia, Kimetsu no Yaiba. I don't know the English name. Boku no Hero is My Hero Academia, I think.
Yeah, My Hero Academia.
Okay. And then Demon Slayer. So they both have like very scrappy main characters that have hearts of gold. They care deeply about the friends, family, but they also have huge goals. And that, like, when I was editing Eva, I was like, yeah, that's like what I want Eva to be like. Like, she's this little tiny witch, but she can make things happen. And then Rira, I think you might know this song, but I always think of characters sort of having like a theme song or like a fight song. And so for Eva, I would say it would be Anpanma
Oh, yeah.
from BTS. And so Anpanma is like a Japanese anime about this guy who's literally like red bean bread, and he gives parts like chunks of himself to like help people around him. And Eva's kind of like that. Like she'll use her magic to take care of those who she loves. So those I would say were like sources of inspiration for like the heart of Eva, like who she is as a character.
So why a repair shop for Eva in the book?
I think, I was thinking that, like, why did I choose a repair shop? And part of it, I think, is because I think it was from my grandparents. So my grandpa, he grew up, my grandparents grew up during the World War II era. And on my dad's side, they grew up in the US and they were in the internment camps. So they tried to, they didn't have a lot when they were growing up. And so they tend to like reuse things and keep things and try to stay as resourceful as possible. And on my mom's side, my grandpa, he would like cut up a piece of paper and reuse it as notepaper because he didn't have a lot either and a lot of money or a lot of, resources to go around. And I think that sort of like that scrappy sort of like resourceful behavior was something that I admire because I admire my grandparents so much. And I sort of wanted to include that in a character.
That's so wonderful, that you were able to put something so personal into like the magical world of this book. So we talked a little bit about how like manga and like Japanese culture has helped influence your book. I just want to talk a little bit more about the landscape of the world of Eva. It seems, I don't know why, but maybe it's like the name. It reminded me of Yokohama. Is there like a Japanese city that helped you like map out the world?
That's actually a really interesting question. So for me, as I was creating Eva and her world, I needed visuals. So I needed to create like a map of Eva and like Eva's Revel realm, which is basically where she's from, and sort of chart out, okay, this is where her hometown is. This is Okayama, the capital city. This is Oteri, the town that she goes to. And just to like literally, like Google Maps, like to figure out like how long it takes to get distance from A to B, I had to figure out like broomstick map, like how long it would take to fly from A to B sort of thing. So when I was creating that map, I actually took Japan and sort of turned it on its side and used that as sort of literally the map of Revel Realm. And actually, Oteri, the place that she ends up landing in, is based on Izu Peninsula. It's a peninsula on the eastern coast of Japan. And actually, it's kind of a personal spot. I never lived there. I just stayed there for a little bit. But it's a personal spot to me because I was there for a trip almost like 9 years ago. And I was there for a trip and we were heading home back to Chiba Prefecture, which is a little bit, I I would say northeast of Tokyo. And that was the day of actually the Great Tohoku earthquake of 2011. So I don't know if you heard about that, but it was a 9.0 earthquake off the eastern coast of Japan. And after that, there was a nuclear meltdown and the earthquakes, obviously.
Yeah, that was the Fukushima thing, right?
Exactly. And so that, I would say, imprinted a lot in my memory. And Eva faces sort of like a natural, not natural, but a disaster of sorts in her story. And I think part of that, being at the Izu Peninsula that day and then having that happen later that day, sort of impacted Eva's story as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. That and also like really scary that you were there for during that time. That was because that was a big deal here too. Because I have a lot of friends in the J community, and they were all like super worried about family back home too. And
it was the strangest experience because I knew it was bad when I was there. I was like, I know it's bad, but I don't know what's going on because, you know, you kind of, when you're watching the news, you see sort of, I guess it's called like an eagle's eye view where everything is like, you can see everything laid out. But for me, I was like on the ground and just trying to understand the world around me. So it was totally different and totally strange. And I was like, I think safe. Where the trains are stopped, where do we go? Like, I was with my grandmother, my mom, like, where are we going to sleep tonight if the trains are stopped? And all these, you know, all these questions. But luckily, like, my family was safe. And we were safe.
Yeah, Vlad. I'm curious because I'm always amazed by world building, especially in stories that have to deal with fantasy worlds, right? Where you have to create everything from scratch. How long did it take you to create this world? Not only like the geography, but the systems, right?
The rules of magic, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That always seems just so like it's just advanced for me, you know?
So it's definitely daunting. But I don't think I realized what I was getting into because I was just like, oh, this is a really fun story about a girl who's got some magic, but not enough. And she's really fun and encouraging to write for me personally. And I didn't really think about the magic until I got in really deep and I was like, oh, wait a minute. So then what I ended up doing is I used Google Slides and I have this like 100-page slide deck of like the characters, the world, and the spells. Like for example, in Eva's world, spells are unique for the caster, so rhymes work really well, but you can't reuse the same rhyme that someone else uses. So say like, you know, in Harry Potter, like everyone uses the same spell and there's only one word for it, like Lumos or whatever. So if in Eva's world, each person has to create their own spell and has to be unique to them because I feel like in my mind, words have a special power and some words mean more to you than it may mean to others. And so I kind of wanted to draw that out and use that in the story. And then for the fun things like the food, I just went with whatever I was hungry for at the moment. So I was hungry a lot.
I was hungry a lot too when I was reading your book. I was like, wow, there are so many good pastries. And like, are you a baker yourself?
Yes.
You are.
I love to bake. I don't bake very well, but I love to bake. And I also think that Japan has a lot of great pastries and bread that they never really get acknowledgement for. So I put a lot of that in there too. I think a lot of people were expecting like rice, which is common in Japan, but I think I read a survey or results for a survey a while back where Japanese, like they tend to eat a lot of bread for breakfast rather than rice nowadays, which surprised me at the time, but I was like, it makes sense. Their bread is really tasty.
I miss those Japanese breakfasts you get at the hotel when you visit.
Those are so good. Like the all you can eat like ones or the ones where it's like a set meal.
Both, to be honest. Just Asian breakfast in general, I think is to me is superior.
There's something so calming about a Japanese breakfast where it's like the miso soup, the rice, salmon, the natto, like love it.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about how you came up with the spells. I don't know about you, but when I had to take classes where you had to write poems, I was a terrible rhymer. So I had to have a list of rhymes ready when I would have to write poems. Did you kind of have to do that for your book? Because some of your spells are just so creative.
So like my Google Chrome history is like days rhymes. Like every word rhymes, every word rhymes. Like I had to search a lot for rhymes, and to make it work and to make it flow. And then I would be like literally counting off on my fingers for like, the syllables to make it flow better. So yeah, definitely there were a lot of edits for the spells.
Man, it would have been so hard if your spells were all haikus.
Oh my gosh, I would not be able to. But that'd be cool if one character did haikus.
But do you feel like now that you've done so many rhymes that you could, maybe freestyle if you wanted to?
With Google Chrome.
Google was really handy for you for your writing process.
Yeah, I think it was because I could use my computer and also use my phone. And it would sync and everything would be in one place. So like I would write literally in Google Docs, and then I would have it on my laptop. And then I also like, if I'm like out somewhere and I have a spare minute or an idea, I could just jot it down in Google Docs and have it all in one place. So ease for me. It was a lot easier.
So what I really liked about your world is there are different ranks for wizard and witches, and you also have protocols for passing exams. I just really, like Marvin said, coming up with the rules of magic from scratch. It's always really impressive to see. I'm curious on how you decided on all of the rules of your world and just like the bureaucracy and the structure of how people become witches and wizards.
I think a lot of, the bureaucracy of how witches became like full official witches was probably because I needed Eva to have to do something to prove herself. But I think a lot of the ranks came from like martial arts. My father is actually very into martial arts, and he would like clear the couch from the living room when we were a kid, and because he taught martial arts, and clear the couch. So he'd clear the couch in the living room, and he'd be like, "Okay, let's go, time to train." And of course, in martial arts, like they have all their belts, so it's kind of like Eva's like advancing, and she's got her white belt right now, but she wants a black belt eventually.
I just pictured Make a Man Out of You from Mulan.
Oh my God.
Let's get down to business. I can just like picture it.
Yeah, my dad will be singing that, like beating a drum, like, let's go, Julie, let's go.
So I really love the friendships and relationships in this book. There's this one character, Charlotte, who, she's kind of prickly in the beginning. She's kind of very cold to Eva in the very beginning, but they have like this very, very special friendship as you read the book. And I don't know, like I really like friendships where the two characters don't get along in the beginning. It's kind of like enemies to lovers, but the friendship version. Do you have was that based on personal experiences?
So I love Charlotte as a character too. She actually, I feel like she's a bit like me because I can be very shy and I don't realize I'm coming off as like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. And I'm just like, I don't know what to say. What do I say? That person's pretty cool, but I don't know what to say to that person. So I feel like Charlotte is like the sort of person that may be sort of her actions may be misconstrued and like people don't understand her. And I wanted people to see like, hey, she actually really has a heart of gold too. Like she loves people, but she doesn't know how to get that across sometimes.
I could definitely relate to Charlotte a lot because I'm very similar. Actually, a lot of people when they first meet me, they automatically assume that I don't like them.
No.
So obviously, like growing up, that was like a challenge trying to like show people, no, like I actually do care. It just seems like I'm disinterested all the time because that's just my face. And I am really shy. So I could definitely relate to Charlotte, and I would have loved to have met her if I was when I was younger. So speaking of younger readers, Eva only has a pinch of magic, like you mentioned, and that's a really sore spot for her. She wants to prove herself, and she's constantly told she is not enough by her own townspeople, and she's told that she's not an actual witch because she has more blood than magic. What do you hope your younger readers learn from Eva's journey?
So that her half magic, semi-magical pinch of magic part is really personal to me, because all throughout my life I felt like kind of not one thing or another. I was born in Japan, but I grew up mostly in the US. So I'm Japanese, but I'm also American, but I'm also not Japanese enough and not American enough. And that, I think, has sort of been part of my whole life. But when I wrote this out, I kind of realized I want readers, or like even a younger me, I want those readers to realize that they are wonderful as they are, and that who they are, what they are, it's enough. Like you don't need to fill everyone's standards. You don't need to dress to impress people who don't care about you or be someone who you're not. So I want readers to remember, like, hey, your pinch of magic is more than enough. Your goals are worthy, and I want you to believe in your dreams.
Yeah, like that's just such an important message for young people nowadays, because everybody wants to, fit in. And when you don't fit into society's standards, it's really disheartening. So like Eva just being so, she's not confident, but she's definitely, she's brave. Even though she's afraid of failing, she still tries. And that is a very big theme in your book. And I really appreciate that you put that in there. We're kind of like winding down in our interview. I guess like one of my last questions for you is, did you get a say in what the cover would look like? Because I think for the people who haven't seen the cover, it's kind of like the art style is very manga-esque. And I think the artist captured Eva really well. So my question is, did you have any say in what kind of style you wanted the cover to be?
So I'm super lucky because Little Brown Young Readers, my publisher, they sent me two completely different artists' portfolios, and they said, "Hey, take a look. Let us know what you think." So I took a look at them, and Shan Jiang, the artist for Eva's cover, his work is just absolutely epic. He's done work for like Nike, Hennessy, like a bunch of major brands, and I was like, wow, he's really cool. But his natural art style is actually a little bit different from the cover he did for Eva. But I was still like, I think I want to go with him because I want to see what sort of cover he'll do. And as a part of that process, I gave like a document of, oh, this is sort of what I see the Eva's cover being like. This is what she looks like, the world she's in. I did like reference photos and all that stuff. And so I was lucky to be included in the cover creation process. And I'm so grateful for how the cover turned out. I feel like I won like the cover lottery or something like that. He's such an amazing artist.
It's such a wonderful cover. It's exactly what I pictured Eva to look like. And for Ember to look like her little
I know.
Yeah, her little pet.
Ember's kind of my favorite, so I'm biased. So I say he looks perfect in every photo. But yes, he looks perfect.
Yeah, it's a very detailed and rich graphic, which is great because you want that graphic that captures the attention of the kids walking around the bookstore, right? Well, maybe browsing around the the website these
Yes.
days. But
Oh, and I've seen the cover for Eva 2, and the cover for Eva 2 is just like beautiful. And Shen Jiang also did the cover chapter header art. And there's some chapter header art for book 2 that I really want to share with the world, but I can't yet. But I'll be super excited when I can. He's amazing. He's amazing.
Speaking of the second book, what can we expect? Because I don't want to spoil anything for the first book, but the ending for the first book, it's a cliffhanger, for lack of a better word. So what can we expect in the second book?
I can't say much yet. I mean, there's going to be Eva, there's going to be Ember, and also a resolution to the cliffhanger.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of, your book's coming out this week. So by the time our listeners have heard this, it's already out. I guess, how has it been, like, releasing a book, in 2020, literally? Like, I know it probably wasn't the debut tour you were expecting, but how has it been going for you?
I think it's been definitely an interesting experience. Of course, I don't know what an actual book release non-pandemic is like, so this is normal, right? This is how everyone else.
Yeah.
This is what authors dream of, when they decide to release a book. I would love to release a book during a pandemic and never go into bookstores.
But that being said, like, people will tag me, like my friend. I think you had her on actually your podcast a little bit ago. Jessica Kim. She tagged me in a photo where she was in a bookstore and she pointed. Eva was on the shelf already. And so I've gotten to see Eva already on bookshelves, and people will tag me in photos saying like, "Oh, I got the book," and I'm like, "Wow." I don't know where the book is already out, but
it's like, wow, there's like people actually physically holding it.
Yes, I get to see it, and I get to appreciate those photos even more because I'm stuck at home.
I mean, a lot of people are, and that's why having great books like Eva Evergreen is so important, because A, it's always great to read a good book, and B, you got to keep those kids distracted with something. And why not distract them with a nice story about a plucky underdog going up against
Marvin,
the world.
You sound like the typical uncle who's like, read 1,000 books,
You want to go outside? No, you're staying here. Read this book.
Come on, that's the thesis of our entire podcast. You should read more from Asian authors, especially. Well, the book came out this past Tuesday, which is August 4th, 2020. The book again is Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch, written by our guest Julie Abe.
Right, thank you again, Julie, for it was such a fun talk. So I wish you the best of luck with your launch.
Thank you.
Yeah. If people want to learn more about your thoughts and want to follow you on social media, where can they go?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Julie Abe Books. I'm most often posting on Instagram, but you can also find me at julieabebooks.com.
Well, congrats on your debut, and looking forward to more and more Eva Evergreen books coming up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And that was Julie Abe. The book, again, is Eva Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch, available at booksellers everywhere. Definitely, if you have anyone in your life who enjoys reading books, whether they're young or old, I think this is something that will make them very, very happy. I'm very excited. I have two nieces who are very voracious readers, so I'm very excited to get this into their hands.
Speaking of being voracious readers, don't forget our August 2020 book club pick is The Empress of Salt and Fortune, which is a novella by Ni Vo. It's been pitched to me as The Handmaid's Tale meets Asian Game of Thrones. So I'm very excited and invested to start reading this book. It's very short. It's a novella. It's only like 120 pages. So I hope a lot of people join in on our Goodreads discussion.
I'm excited to. I have it loaded up on my Kindle, so I'm ready to go. And yeah, like Rira said, if you have any thoughts about this book or past books or just anything about Asian American authors and books in general, please let us know on our Goodreads forums. We love it whenever people post there to introduce themselves or to talk about books. And we want to keep building this community because we're all stuck at home, so let's just read more. And
we have more author interviews coming your way, so stay tuned for that.
It's going to be a jam-packed August. I'm very excited. Until next time, keep reading and drinking boba, I guess.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Rira Yu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Kathy, Kim!
Steve? What's going on?
Tell me, what do you know about K-dramas?
They have something to do with the drama that comes from K-cup coffee pots? Because they're bad for the environment?
No.
Oh, you mean Korean dramas? Yeah, I know that they are very grounded in reality.
No, that's actually the opposite of what happens. It sounds like you don't know anything about K-dramas.
Yeah, I was just guessing.
That's actually perfect. Remember Will, Phil, and Joanna did that Korean drama podcast?
Yeah, they saw Boys Over Flowers.
Yes, and people apparently listened to it and want another season. But Will and Phil are still recovering from that season.
Oh my god, are they okay?
I did hear they tried to give themselves amnesia.
Oh, is that a K-drama thing?
Yeah, pretty much. So, are you guys down to help out with the new season of the Korean drama podcast?
So we're going to be watching a K-drama this time?
Which one?
Secret Garden from 2010. It was a big hit. And if you're down, check out the Korean drama podcast at koreandramapod.com.
Kaja!
Am I going to see Sana Towel Buns?